Hey, Dr. Umar, how you doing, sir?
How's it going, my brother?
We just want to thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to pursue this interview with us.
Oh, no problem.
Hey, Dr. Umar. It's definitely an honor to speak to you today. Thank you so much for taking your time out to interview with Consciousness Magazine.
Honor's mine. Thank you.
How do you define consciousness, and what does conscious leadership mean to you?
Consciousness for me is a two-part construct. Firstly, it requires that one be thoroughly educated and aware about all the forces, major and minor, that serve to undermine the progress of African people, and also all the forces, major and minor, that can serve to advance the cause of African people. That includes our history, our culture, our spirituality, our intellectual potential, our family systems from a traditional standpoint. So it includes knowing all the bad that's working against us, but knowing all the good that we've done, as well as all the potential that we have. That's the one half, the consciousness itself. The other half, I think we struggle with a little bit in the conscious community, in the African-American neighborhood as a whole, and that is the action phase of consciousness. To know in and of itself does not change anything. To do is what changes. And so the other aspect of consciousness requires a responsibility and accountability to the collective for making a difference. And I think it is that side of the concept that is often ignored and overlooked, because we have so many brothers and sisters who are coming into consciousness, the books, the lectures, the DVDs, the events, but at the same time, there's a contentment almost with just having the information as if the information is the goal. The information is not the goal. The information is the means of achieving the goal. And the goal is complete and total independence for all African people in all areas of human endeavor necessary for us to exist in a very healthy and productive fashion in this world.
Wow. Never heard it put so greatly together like that. You are an ancestor of Frederick Douglass. Somewhere in your life, something inspired in you to take on this great endeavor. Well, there's one specific piece of advice or information that you received from a mentor or guru in which you attribute to making you the conscious leader that you are today. If so, who was that individual, and what was that pertinent or prominent piece of information?
Great question. A couple points on that question. Primarily, I would say that the example laid by Frederick Douglass, who I would consider the greatest black man to walk on American soil, I think his example, being a blood relative of me, really gave me a sense of responsibility to try to finish what he started. I would never be able to fill his shoes. No one could fill his shoes, because none of us could go back in time in slavery and actually live the courageous life that he led at that point. But I think his example is what inspires me, and not only him, but there's a lot of great ancestors in my bloodline who are not so famous as Frederick, who also inspire me. And, my standard of comparison for my life and work is my personal ancestors. And, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to fall short. I don't ever want them to feel as if I'm betraying the legacy. And so that is what keeps me focused. Along with that, I would say that my motivation to do this work is something that was kind of influenced by a lot of elders that I've met along in my life. Some of them nameless, and some of them do have names. Some of them I got along with, some of them I didn't like so well, but they still played a role in my development. In fact, one of them was just buried this past Friday. He was the first elder that invited me to my very first UNIA meeting, of which I was a one-time Minister of Education and first Vice President of the Philadelphia chapter. But I was always, as a youth, one willing to listen to the counsel of the elders. And so I was always blessed to have people walk up to me who could teach me something, at the bus stop, at events, going different places. Men and women who were much older than I, they would just feel comfortable enough with my energy to just come up and say, son, let me teach you something. And so for me, I would say that it was the collective wisdom of the elders that I came in contact with throughout my life that really kind of inspired me to stay on this path, although I would say it was my bloodline ancestors that actually got me started on the path.
How how can we get through to the youth via conscious leadership like yourself? More so, how do we get through to the youth who are on their way to destruction, distracted by television, playing video games, or just plain nonsense? What is the key to get them to make the appropriate changes to better themselves and become leaders like yourself?
Well, we have to keep in mind that our youth are very, very intelligent. They're very intelligent. And because of that, it's easy for them to discern a sincere person from an insincere person. They can discern a coward from a courageous person. And because of that, I think that often the youth are blamed for not listening to their elders, not listening to those who are older than them. However, I would argue that a lot of that is not the fault of the youth. You know, a lot of that is due to the youth's ability to see through a lot of our efforts. And I was at a panel discussion not too long ago with Mark Lamont Hill, and the question was asked to me, why do the youth have such a difficult time listening to elders and those older than them? And I said it's because the youth know that most of us are afraid of white people. I said that's the reason. It's hard for them to really humble themselves to leadership that is afraid to stand up and challenge the white power system that is responsible for the predicament that the youth are in. So the question from the youth to the rest of us is, why should I listen to you when I know you're not ready to pay the ultimate price to improve my opportunities in this world? So you want me to listen, and you want me to respect, and you want me to follow, but what are you willing to do to change the oppressive reality that black male and female youth experience in this country? And so I think a lot of what's considered, youthful disrespect isn't that at all. It's just their keen insight in being able to discern who's real and who's not. I think the other issue with that relates to intergenerational transfer of power. We cannot expect the youth to just sit still and listen forever without being given an opportunity to flex their leadership muscles, flex their intellectual muscles, flex their organizational muscles. We have to give them an opportunity to lead. And the problem with many of our organizations is that they are run like dictatorships. Youth are not often given an opportunity to participate in the leadership, not necessarily be a leader, but participate in the leadership. This is a problem in the black church. It's a problem for our civil rights integrationist movement. It's a problem for our community organizations, and it's a problem for our grassroots revolutionary movement. They are run by dictators, by a Eurocentric dictatorial process that does not give the youth an opportunity to lead. And one of our biggest crises in the black community is just that. The fact that we have too many people who are well beyond the age of retirement who would still rather be in a leadership role as opposed to an elder role where they can provide counsel and nurture. We never throw away the elders. African culture, we never throw away the elders, but they do transition to a different role. At this point in their lives, many of them, they should be giving out the wisdom, the advice, the counsel. That's what we need them for, the guidance. But to be trying to be a leader in your 60s and 70s is counterproductive because you're no longer as charismatic as what is necessary to bring in the youth. That's why the spokesperson always had to be charismatic. He or she had to have the electric that would organize the masses. And the other piece that goes along with that, the older you get, the more conservative you become because you want to enjoy your last years on this planet, your last couple of decades. That's true for human nature. The older you get, the more conservative you become. That's why I was not surprised when Fidel Castro handed over leadership of Cuba to his younger brother. People said, why not? Why not lead it till you die? For him, and I'm not a Castro fan. I don't have white folks heroes of Fidel Castro in Italian. But out of respect for his decision, I respected it because he recognized the fact that I'm getting older and I'm going to grow more conservative. And my conservative mindset that comes with elderhood could potentially threaten the evolution of this country. But that's the issue we have because of the ego, the castrated ego of the black male that pushes us to overcompensate. When we do get an opportunity to lead, we take it to our head, we run it like a dictatorship, and we never prepare the next generation. Do you realize that the average black organization, religious or secular, revolutionary or integrationist, does have an authentic and legitimate leadership training program? Almost none of them do. How can you prepare the next generation for leadership when you don't even have a leadership program in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, so there was no automatic replacement. We still haven't had a Dr. King replacement in 50 years. Malcolm gets the same thing. But the Organization of African American Unity didn't have a leadership program to follow up Malcolm with the replacement. That is our problem. We are too busy praying for leaders while all the other races are making leaders.
Many blacks have become accustomed to depending on physicians as well as the pharmaceutical industry's chemical drugs for healing and cures. Now, since we've become so conditioned to this, how do we change the mindset of these individuals, getting them to see and believe that there are other options and that these so-called incurable diseases like cancer and diabetes can be cured by naturopathy and the self-healing process through the use of natural therapies?
Couple things. Number one, demonstration. There is nothing that succeeds like success. When black people see examples of alternative medicine or examples of anything alternative in a community that yields success, they'll be more likely to experiment with it themselves. We have to recognize that our people are bandwagon people. They are bandwagon people because they no longer nationally feel, honored to be an African. They don't feel honored to be an African. And so in order to get them energized about anything we want to do, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's about community organization, fighting against police brutality, we have to show them success. We have to build momentum before they can expect it to join in. Of course, that's not the way we want it to be. We want people to get in at the grassroots and help us build that momentum. But that's not how our people are. They want to see success. You have to prove to them that this can work before they're joined. That's why many are called, but it's few are chosen. And it's always few who do the work. We also got to recognize something else, and that is nobody can change. You can't change someone from without. All change is from within. All change is from within. So we can try to influence, we can try to motivate, we can try to get them to see their reality different, but at the end of the day, they have to want to change. When someone comes into therapy, our responsibility as the therapist is to try to help them see their reality different. If I can help them see their reality different, then maybe they will begin to take the action steps necessary to move themselves towards solution of the problem. So our whole strategy in therapy is to change perspective, in the hope that in changing perspective, you will change behavior and thought along with it. Because since we cannot make them change, we cannot heal someone from psychological illness without their participation. That complicates the matter. When you talk about post-traumatic slavery disease that all Africans are affected with, there's no overcoming that PTSD without their willingness to change. And so our number one strategy is to get our people to see things differently. For example, take my work as a school psychologist. My job is to do what? Get parents who have been dependent and reliant on special education and ADHD medicine for decades to see special ed different, to see ADHD different. Does that automatically follow that they'll take their child out of special ed or off the medication? No. But if I can get them to see special ed for what it is, as a hurt, not a help, if I can get them to see psychiatric meds as it is, as a harm and not a help, then because they see it differently, they'll be more likely to take action. So we have to improve our propaganda. We have to improve our marketing system to our own people. Now someone would say, why would you say marketing system instead of capitalism? You're right. But as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, we're going to have to sell the Negro to himself. You got to understand, black people have been sold a sad song about who they are. And we're going to have to sell them a positive song about who they are. So we're going to have to market what the African is all over again for African people in order to change their perspective. But there is no change from without, all from within. But we do play a major role of being to get some change by making sure we're coming in an appropriate way in engaging our people to bring about that change. And that's very important, Queen. And the reason it's very important is because I see a lot of folks in the conscious community, and I'm not judgmental, but their approach to raising the consciousness of everyday African people is very hostile, is very disrespectful, is very aggressive, is very insulting. And I look at these people and I say, brother, well, you will never bring them into consciousness attacking their Christianity, attacking their Islam, attacking this, attacking that, because you're feeding more of what they're already used to, and that's negativity. If we want to get our people back, we got to bring them a positivity that is more strong than any negative energy they've ever been faced with.
Great information.
I agree.
A great deal of blacks who I encounter with on a daily are not aware that GMOs exist and do not even know what GMOs are. In the meantime, Monsanto has made billions while millions of people have suffered. What are your thoughts on genetically modified foods, and how do we educate blacks regarding GMOs and to also become more conscious of the foods that we intake?
I don't support GMOs at all. In fact, at my lecture in Kansas City last night, I was talking about the GMO movement and how I believe many of the so-called all-natural food markets are also selling genetically modified foods but still calling it organic. For example, in many of these whole food markets, they have something called organic seedless produce. How in the hell can something be organic if it doesn't have seeds? So we got to recognize that capitalism is trying to manipulate black people's desire to eat better by simply stamping non-nutritional foods as nutrition. And so we have to educate our folks a whole lot better. I read an article not too long ago that talked about some research that was done with lab mice who were fed GMO crops. And the lab mice that were fed GMO crops, many of them, their testicles begin to swell. Most of them developed cancer. There was depression of the immune system. And this was almost instantaneous, by the way. This wasn't something that happened a couple months later. It was almost instantaneous. This GMO piece, and we got to keep in mind the role of population control in the growth of the GMO movement. This GMO piece was not primarily designed for capitalism to get rich. It was primarily designed to reduce the amount of Africans in the world. This GMO has become the weapon of choice in African countries, where a lot of African countries are being forced to buy GMO products because, as you said, companies like Monsanto and others are buying up. They are actively trying to remove from the world all natural seed. They don't want any natural seed. They want to constantly take that. They use it exclusively for white folk and even more exclusively for rich white people. And they want to give the rest of the world GMO crops. And when you plant the GMO crop, one of the side effects of GMO crop is that it destroys the soil. When you plant GMO, it begins to suck up the nutritional content of the soil more so than regular products do. And with most GMO crops, here's the capitalism coming in. For most GMO crops, it only grows one time. Whereas with natural crops, you can sometimes, re-ferment, replant those seeds over and over again. But with GMO crops, it's designed to destroy your soil, so you can't even grow your own food. That makes you dependent on white folks to import food. And that's exactly what's going on in African countries now. They have to import their food because GMO crop is destroying the land. That's number one. And then number two, it only grows once. So that is supply and demand. So once you reap one harvest, you automatically got to buy more seed from the white man and reach the more harvest of this cancer-inducing type of a grain. So when Marcus Garvey said we need to become science par excellence, this is what he was talking about. We have to raise up agricultural engineers. We have to raise up African people who are able to challenge the technology of white supremacy, GMO, nuclear energy, and otherwise to protect us, because until we develop science who are of a race-first mindset, we will always be slaves to those who are more economically and agriculturally inclined. We have to get into science, and that is why STEM programs are so important in the African-American community, because our children are allergic to math and they are allergic to science, and that's because we do not push them, and they have one of the stereotypes that African Americans are not intelligent, and therefore our kids fear science and math. We have to change that, or we will always be dictated to by Europeans, whether it's AIDS, whether it's Ebola, whether it's GMO, whether it's nuclear energy. We have to take a stand against this, but I'm totally against the GMO crop. We have to educate our people, not just about GMO crops, because a lot of black folk are catching on now, but to how to determine if it's GMO crop, because so much of it is being sold under false advertising.
Now I want to touch up on faith. Now, what are your thoughts regarding blacks who claim to have faith in God, but who are totally dependent on the government for monthly cash assistance? For example, if their faith in God is truly that high, why do they panic when there is talk about maybe their government or work checks are being late or funds being cut? Is that a contradiction? Why don't they just depend on their higher power to get them through, minus the government assistance?
Well, here's the thing. Black people, slavery gave us a very unhealthy relationship to supreme consciousness. It gave us a very unhealthy perspective of God. And what I mean to say of that is the average black person, their concept of God is based on an external locus of control. external. In other words, if anything is going to change in my life, it must happen from outside. God has to make the change for me. External locus. But in African cosmology, it is internal locus of control. God exists, but God exists within you as well. And to the extent that you work and solve an issue, God is working and solving that issue because you are one of the many manifestations of supreme consciousness. So that is an internal locus of control. That says if we're going to get out of slavery, we're going to have to fight to do it. If we're going to come out from under white supremacy, we're going to have to fight to do it. That's internal locus. But the slave master, being very intellectually shrewd and clever as he was, he knew that if he conditioned in us a God that had an external locus of control that doesn't work through you but works for you, it would make us dependent on external events for our salvation. And that is the problem with black people today. We're largely dependent on external phenomena for what's happening. Yes, there's God. Yes, God can affect change. There's the ancestors, there's the Orishas, the Loas, the Netters, the Abusum. We live in a spirit world, literally. Yes, that's true. But let's keep in mind, we got out of slavery because we fought. Okay, the Haitian Revolution was successful because they fought. Yes, they invoked the energy, but they still had to do the work themselves. And this external locus of control is killing the motivation, the dedication, the self-reliance, the self-responsibility, and the accountability of black folk because we want somebody outside of us to do the work for us. And that grows out of slavery where you weren't allowed to do anything for yourself. You had to depend on God because your hands were tied behind your back. You had to depend on the slave master because your hands were tied behind your back. But because we were conditioned for that for 500 years, once they took the chains off, the mind was still conditioned to think that way. And that's why we still have this external locus of control. And when we talk about black folks being dependent on government subsidies and things like that, I like to only refer to that in the collective. Because the reality of the situation is we do have parents out there, single mothers, who need that type of assistance because the black community doesn't have the economic sophistication and structure necessary to provide for the needs of all of our people that if they need the assistance, I don't have a problem with them getting the assistance, especially our single moms. But I know what you're meaning to say there, and I agree with you. That is, we as a people, if we truly believe in God that we claim, if we're truly as spiritual as we claim to be, why aren't we doing more to provide for ourselves? Why are we not taking our people out of the dependency complex that they have on the United States government? I absolutely agree with you, my queen. How can you be so spiritual? How can you claim to be so in touch with the universe? How can you claim to be so in touch with your ancestors and so in tune with Almighty God, but at the same time, this so-called spiritual power that you claim you have in abundance is not manifesting in your life? It is a contradiction, my sister, and I'll tell you why. Study any religious force in history. Study Jesus. Study Muhammad. Study Moses. Study Buddha. Study Krishna. You can even study Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi, any religious personality who is serious. Their spiritual dedication and spiritual development was so powerful that it automatically spilled over into the political realm. It automatically spilled over into the economic realm. Look at it, Garvey, look at it, Malcolm, all these brothers, these were spiritual black men, of course, women as well. And because they were so spiritual, they knew that to really be a devotee of the Most High God, I'm going to have to affect change in my physical environment, in my physical community, or my physical brothers and sisters. There's no such thing as a spiritual person who is not making a difference for black folks. That is a hypocrite.
Dr. Umar, I'm going to ask you a few more questions because I know you got to get off to another interview. In your lecture, you mentioned that black people are controlled in a system operated by white supremacy. What is it about black people or Africans that we naturally possess and blind us to see, or we naive to know about because we are, some of the most spiritual, creative, innovative, and intelligent people that walk this planet?
White supremacy don't want us to understand white supremacy. And what I mean to say by that, the greatest weapon that white supremacy uses against black people is intellectual technology. It makes us think that it's not great. It makes us think that it's not fine. And the way it does that is by treating us in a humane way that confuses us about who white folk really are. They'll smile at you, you work with them, you go to tea with them, they'll take care of your children, they'll help you out from time to time. And so it looks like, maybe these people ain't so bad. Maybe they are changing. But what we start to realize, if white folks are so nice, as they always like to act, why in the hell are so many black men in jail? If white folks are so nice, like they ought to act, why our unemployment rate has been at 50% for the past 50 years? The white folks are so great. Why have they never given black people a slice of the economic pie? So we have to train ourselves to study the conditions, not the behavior of people. Because white culture is based on military science. White culture is based on military science. And what is military science based on? Military science is based on deception. The essence of military science is to deceive your enemy as a strategy of manipulation, domination, control, and extermination. So when white folks are conversating with you and they're laughing and smiling, that is only a strategy to get along with you, to keep you comfortable. They do not like black folks. And I think why we're so confused about white supremacy is we keep looking at it from an emotional lens. Only the white person who doesn't like black people is a racist. No, all white people are racist. Well, how can you say that, Dr. Umar? Because all white people participate in, support, and benefit from the system of African oppression and degradation. Every white person benefits. Every white person helps to maintain it. And every white person supports it, verbally and non-verbally. There is no white person on the face of this earth who has ever went to war against their own people in order for black people to be treated equal. Never. You have white folk who fought against slavery. You have white folk who fought against child sex slaves. You have white folk who fought against poverty. You have white folk who fought against the treatment of black women. But these are selective issues. These are special interest causes. You've never had white folk who fought to eliminate white privilege. When did we have a fight against white privilege in world history? I want to know what leader, what country, what movement, what time period did white folk come together and fight against white privilege? When did they try to eliminate the system of benefit that they all receive, that they all benefit from? When did they try to eliminate the system of white privilege that would allow black people to be treated fairly? Where is the white person who fought for a radical redistribution of America's wealth so all black people get their piece of the American economic pie that our ancestors are responsible for creating, for putting America at the forefront of the world? If you want to be so caring for black folk, you would take all the wealth, divide it back up, give us our rightful share. Where's that movement at? See, when you look at the things that really count, the things that would change the power dynamic between black folk and white folk, we have never had a white person or movement ever fight to change the power relationship that exists between black and white. They fight to end slavery, but the power relationship is the same. When we got out of slavery, we had no jobs, we owned no wealth. The power relationship was the same. They'll fight to change the laws, but the power relationship is the same. They'll fight to improve the schools, but the power relationship is the same. Who has fought to change the power relationship between black and white that keeps them in control of our destiny? Nobody. White supremacy is not about emotion. A white person can like you personally and still work for the collective downfall of black people because white supremacy ain't personal.
Now I want to talk about natural hair regarding the black female. Now I'm a black female who embraces my natural hair despite the negative stigma that society has put in place, often referring to our tightly coiled hair as nappy or unattractive. Now, most often we don't see influential figures or celebrities that look like us on prime TV shows or movies, like rocking natural afros, puffs, locks, etc. Instead, we are portrayed with straight European hair. Now, how do we get the mindset of our sisters to change so that they realize our kinky hair is beautiful and to also embrace their natural beauty and natural curls, no matter if they are loose or tightly coiled?
The hating of natural hair by black women is one of the foremost psychological residuals of slavery, manifestations of post-traumatic slavery disease for black women. I say that to say that if we want to change that around, I'm going to go back to examples of success. The more black women go natural, the more black women who will go natural. We have to recognize the power of positive influence. So the more black women go natural, the more black women will go natural. For example, I've seen just in my work, as a scholar and a lecturer, traveling around, it does my heart well, because I'll talk about how much I love a natural woman and how black women look so good being who they are. Let's say I'm in New York and I'll give that lecture, and I'll come back a year later and I'll see like 3 or 4 sisters who are not natural who now are. I've seen at least 50, and I don't take personal credit for this, I give it to the universe, but I've seen at least 50 black women who I believe were personally touched by that divine wisdom that came through me to actually change, from unnatural to a natural state. But they need support from other black women. I'm going to tell you the biggest thing that keeps black women from going natural, despite the influence from natural sisters and natural brothers, and that is other black women who don't change. There's a lot of black women who are aggressively fighting against the natural hair movement. They don't want it to become mainstream in the black community because they don't like who they are. And they're using their self-hate as an influence and a bullying weapon to keep other black women from going natural as well. But again, the more that y'all go natural, the more sisters will go natural. And I think black men have to also take responsibility for the slow rate of natural hair transformation. A lot of black men are very hypocritical. I'm talking about the conscious brother, the RBG brothers, the so-called, let's stand up and scrap with the white man brothers. A lot of them will say they want a natural hair woman, but I know for a fact, because I've seen some things and I've had some stories told to me about some brothers who talk the black talk, don't really want a sister who walk the black walk. They still want her to have the Beyonce look, which is one of the contradictions in the conscious community, where so many brothers, who say they're conscious and want to date, conscious women, but they're dating sisters who do not have their natural hair. And for me, it goes beyond the aesthetic of it. It validates who the black woman is. It allows her to step out of the Eurocentric beauty paradigm and say, I am beauty in and of itself. It is a way of going back to the origin where the black woman was first symbolized as the first symbol of the Most High God. For me, it is so important for us to change the mindset of young black girls by having them see adult black women with natural hair. Do you know how powerful that is for a black woman with natural hair to be a school teacher and walk into a classroom with 30 black girls and they all got perms and start talking about the beauty of their natural hair? Those girls will go home and tell their mom, take this out my hair. That's the power of it. They will say, Mom, take this out my hair. So we have to look at that. We got a power of positivity, especially black women in leadership positions. They're the main ones that we really need, to go natural, because they have a lot of influence. We have to use our leadership. Imagine if Beyonce went natural. Could you imagine an impact to that? What if Oprah went natural? Now, we know them sisters aren't likely to do anything like that, but we do have conscious sisters and sisters in other segments of society who could really flex their influential muscle amongst black women. What if the sister from Scandal went natural? So we have to really look at, how we can really change the game when it comes to black women, in that area.
Would you like to add or discuss anything that we haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about, such as the progression of your school, FDMG Academy, or how people may get a hold of you, etc.?
Yes, I would say that we're still trying to raise $2 million to purchase either the Chamberlain Hunt Academy in Port Gibson, Mississippi, or the St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. Our boys want that school. Our boys need that school. If anyone is interested in donating, they can send a check or a money order payable to FDMG Academy to P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19132. If they need to reach me, they can do so on my website, drumarjohnson.com. They can also go to drumarjohnsonschool.com. And we're also working on a Black Boy College tour, June 10th to the 17th, July 1st to the 8th. And they can get that information at drumarhbcutours.com. They can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Umar Johnson, Facebook, Dr. Umar Ifatunde. And also, we're working on the Unapologetically African magazine. Folks can submit an article to that, 1,000 words with their picture. We're taking a trip to Africa this summer in July. If anyone's interested in that, they can get in contact with me by email, drumarjohnson@yahoo.com. And we're taking resumes. Anyone who wants to work at the school can send a resume with a cover letter to FDMG Resumes gmail.com.
Dr. Umar, this has been a great interview. I really appreciate it. We really do.
Yes, definitely. This has been a wonderful interview. Really appreciate what you're doing for the Black community and appreciate your movement. Just keep up the wonderful work.
Definitely.
Y'all be safe out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.